Good morning to everyone. My name is Robert McLean. I'm here with Martin Rapos from AKULAR and Dewald Smith from the company ALEC. We're here to talk about digital construction and to help people understand a buzzword that gets used quite a bit these days. What does it mean in real life? That's what we'd like to talk about today. Why is it important? How can it be used? Not just for the developers, but also by general contractors. As I said, we're going to be speaking with a real proponent of this new form of construction, Dewald Smith, who's a contract manager at ALEC Engineering. He's here in the UAE, and with Martin Rapos, the co-founder of AKULAR, who's developing revolutionary visualization techniques that's key to this whole process. Dewald, I thought maybe we could start with you. I think it's difficult for people who are not involved in the construction process to imagine just how chaotic a large, complex construction process can actually be. From the outside, it all looks like, I think, often a well-oiled machine that the GC takes the blueprints, assigns the work, and then sends people off to inspect the work that they assume has been all done correctly. The reality can sometimes be somewhat different, can't it?
Yes, thanks guys. Thanks for having us on the call this morning. You're 100% correct there in saying that it looks all fine from the outside, but it's actually a daunting task for us every day to manage the information that we've been dealing with or been issued, and then to go construct a building. So generally we still construct in a very manual way, where we bring thousands of people to a job site, put stakeholders or bring stakeholders together, and then dissect the information, and then still physically, manually building the jobs. So it seems easy maybe for novices or guys from the outside, but the real challenge for us is dealing with the information that's been issued to us by various stakeholders and consultants, making that information work and making sense of the information, coordinating it, and then sending it back to the job site, and ensuring that the teams that's executing that information set does it in the right and correct manner. So it is quite a daunting task, but I think with digital tools we're getting there.
Maybe you could just help explain to people what it actually means, digital construction methods. I mean, as a general contractor, how does it help you organize the work that gets done? And if you could tell us like how it's been working until recently, and the difference, the practical difference it actually makes when you're able to use these new methods.
Okay, so just if I can start maybe on a high level, I think we've got digital tools or digital construction offsite, which enables us in the design office and the management office to manage the project on a high level. And then we've got another set of digital tools that enable us on the job site, and digital technologies that we use and leverage to try and build faster. So up until a few years ago, I can still remember that information was issued to us as contractors physically in hard printed documents, and it's been handed over and signed off. You take acceptance of the drawings and then you go and build. Nowadays, with all these digital platforms and common data environments, we are now living in times where all the information is now digitally issued to all stakeholders, and then we can manipulate the data electronically or on our computers. So on the job site, again, like I said earlier, we're still very manual in the way that we construct and go about our day-to-day activities, but we are now developing tools like augmented and virtual reality, where we're starting to overlay the data sets and the information onto the job site, and then enabling the guys to make better decisions fast and understanding the end product before they start actually building the areas or the project.
I mean, I think one thing that's important to stress is this is not all completely brand new technology. It's not that everybody has to get used to something that's completely different. It's taking a lot of different types of techniques that are already available, but actually synthesizing and bringing them together. At the heart of all of this is a BIM model, a 3D model of the actual construction project. Martin, maybe you could help us understand like what that is, how you how you fit into this process and how you make that model available to all the different stakeholders, as Dewald was saying.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. So, hi, Dewald. For us, we are a 3D visualization company. We are working with BIM models around the world. So now we have around 7,000 models on our platform, and we are helping to bring down the level of detail a little bit and optimize it so that everybody can use it. And I think that's the big difference, right? Because before you would be having BIM models in the office. And that's all very useful for coordination, but you are still in the office. You are not being able to bring the BIM model to the site. And so what we are working on with Dewald and his team in UAE is actually bringing the entire model with all of the details to the site, so that the people that actually really need to see the information, they get it right there, overlaid and in the context of the part of the construction or part of the building that they're busy with at the moment.
I mean, isn't an important part of that as well? There is so much information that filtering all of that information is also, I would think, critical. Dewald, is that the case, and is that what the product? This allows people to have access to lots and lots of information, but also to filter it correctly so that information is actionable, so it's usable.
Yes, that's correct. When we construct, we're constructing and using information from different trades and consultants. All that information then needs to be coordinated together in a single source of truth, which we use as the BIM model. And then that BIM model is then being used to extract 2D drawings for construction. So with the use of these digital tools like the AR, we can then overlay all these information sets in one platform, and then overlay that onto the job site. So guys are now enabled to see all the elements in one platform without having to dissect different sets of informations or drawings.
And at the same time, you are not, you don't have to do the 2D outputs from the BIM model, which is the typical workflow, right? You are able to see everything in one, and you can just layer it, like if you're peeling an onion, you can take layers out, you can bring layers in, you can see everything together. Whereas, if you exported just electrical or just mechanical, and then, you have different teams looking at it, then you have space for misinterpretations, right? So the fact that you are able to see on site and you are able to see all of the layers together gives you much broader context of the information and leaves much less room for error.
Basically, printing everything out, it's not practical to give everyone only the version that they actually need. That can help avoid errors by including too much information.
That is correct.
Okay. One thing I did want to say before we go any further, for people who are viewing this online, we do have a Slido, a way of asking questions. Sometimes it's hard to know what people do understand, and you might have some special questions. So you can go to sli.do, and once you're there on that site, just type in the code AKULAR, which is AKULAR. So feel free to send questions at any time, either that or on the LinkedIn chat. I believe there's a way to do it that way as well. Dewald, maybe how does site and project coordination change? Could you maybe take us through a typical beginning of your day? And how do these new processes and technology improve your ability to have management teams work more efficiently?
Okay, so if we talk about change, change starts off with new information coming from the consultants or the employers. Then it makes its way through our design office. In the design office, we need to rebuild the 3D models in Revit or within the BIM model, and then coordinate the works. And then those works will then be issued to the site management, who will then execute on site. So normally change management has a big impact on our works in terms of time and cost. But what the AR and the VR does is, as soon as we get the change and we model the change into these 3D visualization tools, it gives the guys immediate understanding of what the change is, and then also what the impact of the possible change might be. So time saving in terms of using these digital tools is big, and also the quality of the works that will be executed on site is much better and faster, because guys have got a greater understanding of what the change is and what the impact of that change would be. So now with this digital tool, you can manage it downstream with your site operatives and get the job done. And then at the same time, you can manage it upstream to the client and consultants and advise them if there's any large time or cost impacts to the project.
Do you have any way of estimating how much time you can actually save every day, in terms of, like, at the beginning of the day, you're probably going to be assigning some types of work. Like, how long does that process take to give everyone their assignments for the day? And if you can make that faster, doesn't that have a lot of time savings then downstream?
Yes. So last year, around April, we've launched the AKULAR AR and VR on our current project. So about 2 months after the launch of the software, we've set out, or we've put out a survey to all the site users that's been using the platform, just to understand what the benefits are and the value add of the software. So the biggest benefit that we saw is time saving of between 1 and 3 hours, depending on the grade of this operative.
That's every day, per day?
Yes, that's per day. So instead of sitting behind a document control platform, pulling out different sets of information to understand what a space should look like once it's constructed, all they do is walk to site with an iPad, scan the trigger on site, and then immediately they can see all the data or all the information sets overlaid onto site. And then, like Martin said, they can filter through. So you can switch off civil layers, MEP layers, and you can understand what's behind a ceiling or behind a wall, instead of reviewing a 2D drawing and having your own interpretation of that data.
Yeah. So maybe just to add and to put this into perspective, Rob. So what we're doing here with ALEC is one of the most innovative construction companies out there. And the way we judge that is by the complexity of the 3D model, right? So the 3D models that we're working with on the project which Dewald just mentioned is anywhere from 1 to 4 billion polygons, right? So to give you again, the perspective, typically, and we've got thousands of models like this, typically our models see no more than 10, 20 million polygons, right? This is 1 to 4 billion. And we are able to bring that and that's the power of technology, right? You are able to bring that complexity to the fingertips of the field workers, the builders actually need it right there, and then they can select just the layers that they're interested in, etc. So you get the whole model there on their iPads, and you've got hundreds of concurrent users.
Dewald, could you just explain what's in what sort of information is packed into all those billions of polygons? I mean, there's BIM models, and then there's BIM models. You can have just what it looks like, but it's also what's so revolutionary about BIM models is that you can have all the components of each of the projects and various monitors. Just give people an idea of what is included in that BIM model that maybe isn't completely standard.
Okay, so I would say with ALEC itself is very mature when it comes to BIM in the region. So on our projects, we run on 5D BIM models. So all our 3D models are cost loaded and schedule loaded. Now these models are then shared with AKULAR, and these models also include textures, furniture, props, any element that the final building or the final product would be is modeled in 3D. So these cost loaded, schedule loaded, texture loaded models, which is up to 4 billion polygons, are then issued or sent over to AKULAR, where they, like Martin said, downscale it a little bit to make it more visual and faster on site for the guys to see, because I don't need all the information for all my guys in all the areas. So what we're trying to do, or what we're doing, is we we're giving the information set down to site, only what's needed to build the job. So on this, for the site guys, then all the building elements are visible and accessible for them. So anything from electrical, plumbing, mechanical, structural work, finishing work, furniture, trees, anything that's inside the building or around the building is then visible for the guys.
I think one thing that's so important about what you're doing and the way you're cooperating with AKULAR is that I think oftentimes we think of digital construction as something that will come someday in the future. That it sounds a bit like science fiction. In fact, the projects you guys are working on right now is sort of like a physical manifestation. It's like it's a proof of concept essentially. It must be very exciting and rewarding for you to be working with them in that case.
It truly is, and this is really just kicking off how the future will look like, right? Because it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you heard Dewald, being able to save 20-30% of the time in the head office with all the downstream implications, obviously, is something that will pick up throughout the industry. And we are working around the world with construction companies. So we'll see more of this.
Okay. And well, one of the practical things I think you're able to have your people do is when they go to inspect the work that's been done, they take their iPad and they can go in and look for specific types of cabling that was supposed to be done that day. Is it the case they can simply walk around with an iPad and compare it to the model to what they're seeing? Is that a good way of explaining what you're able to do now? And how is it different from what you did before? Why is it more effective?
Yes, you're correct in saying that. So with the models, like I said earlier, we trigger the model with a QR code on site. And these triggers have been 3D scanned into the model. So once you pull that model up on site, everything that you visualize on the augmented reality app is in position, locked in position. So where a wall is, that's where the wall should be, or where the ceiling is, or a window, that's where it should be. So now with inspections on site, you are able to either select certain layers on or off, like a ceiling or a wall, or you can set the opacity of the elements on site so that you can, in essence, see through those elements and view the actual behind it. So with that overlay, it's now easier for the guys to understand any deviations on site. If something has been built out of position or something is actually missing. So if the model shows there's a firefighting pipe and it's not there, it's actually missing. So guys don't have to go find all the drawings anymore and do standalone inspections. You can now do more of a unified inspection where you can inspect multiple trades at the same time.
Which for you is key if you're trying to keep a project on budget and on schedule. Because it's hard to imagine that you're saying, yes, that wall really is there. It's hard to imagine that, well, most people would think, well, of course the wall is right there. I mean, it's in the blueprint, but mistakes can happen, I guess. And for you, the thing you're most worried about, I would think, are fixing mistakes. It's the rework that you have to do. How crucial is that to getting a project right?
Well, like I said earlier, any change is bad for a project, and that's where we lose time and money. Now, change can be either from an employer or from a consultant, or the change might be due to the contractor's fault, and that results in rework. So with us now understanding fully in a visual realm what we need to build, it gives the guys a clearer understanding of what's coming, how they can plan the work, and how they should build and execute the work. So just to give you a better understanding, if you talk about mega projects, big projects, you sit with about 7,000 labor on site and 1,000 staff members on site. Now, if you bottleneck the process of feeding information to site, then you're losing time, and that time can be lost with 7,000 people. So your losses are very big on a project, on a mega project or large scale project. So any time saved is of true value and benefit to us and to the employer as well.
Okay, and we've been talking about the construction process itself. But I think you've been using this technology as well to help in the handover process to the client. Talk us through that and how, and Martin, jump in at any point as well to explain why it's not just good for you as a general contractor, but how it can be of service and useful for the client.
So on the handover side, we haven't reached the point with the software where we are handing over the project. So the project we're working on now was our pilot last year, and it was successfully implemented, and we're running it, and we'll also be launching it on our next projects. Now, when we talk about the handover of a project, we're working now with AKULAR, where we're going to go from a static model to more of a dynamic model. Now, dynamic model is a big term and it's a very big definition, but if you talk about the handover phase on a dynamic model, we'll be using existing sensors in buildings and we'll be incorporating that into the augmented reality apps. So now, upon handover of a project, you'll be able to give your client or your employer a record model, which is your as-built model, with integrated sensors into the model, and then giving them the ability of viewing their plant rooms and their assets on a job in real time remotely. So when it comes to facilities management, maintenance, etc., for the operator of the building, they don't necessarily have to be on site. They can be in another country if they're a specialist, or they can be working from home, or they can be working from the head office, maintaining multiple projects or assets in a region. So that's the FM part of handover. And then just before that handover is the physical building handover. So I do believe that it will help us at that point as well to physically hand over the building to the employer in terms of documenting a record product, and then also giving it in digital format to the employer as opposed to manual paper-based handover.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you think about it, so what you described is there is another kind of industry buzzword for it called the digital twin, right? So the dynamic model or the digital twin is the 3D model where you have data overlays. And why it's so important is, as Dewald said, basically, instead of handing it over on a USB or handing it over, in paper even, you now basically just create another login into a live system. And you already have a trail of data because all these systems that are being handed over as part of the building, they have their go live phase and they have their testing phase already behind them. So you got all kinds of data logs that are very important for the facility manager operator when to pick up the whole gist of the building and how the different systems actually work together. Because yes, if you hand over a building with hundreds of systems on a USB or a CD, and it's got hundreds of and thousands of PDFs saying yes, this system has been tested and it works, stamp, versus now Dewald will just give his login. He had to see and sign off all of these systems, right? And he knows how the systems work together in the building, and then basically just hand it over. Say, here's my login. Take it from here. You can always look back, several months on the testing of the different systems, and you can see what's the volatility, what's the data anomalies that you were able to pick up during the test phase. So I think this is super important to speed up the learning curve after the handover, and then of course to also make the life of the facility managers and asset managers easier. Because yes, they do have BMS systems and they have all kinds of systems installed, but they need to learn how to work with the system in the particular building. Whereas the general contractor already knows because he's been working through that, and towards the end of the construction phase, all the systems were already feeding data.
All this comes at a very useful time as well, just in terms of being able to do all these things remotely. Before, I think a lot of these processes, so many people had to come together at the same time, which is all of a sudden has become in the last 2 years extremely difficult. Well, this must be a sort of a revolution for you. It must have come just in time when you think about it, no? The ability to do all of this remotely.
Yes, especially with the pandemic and where we are now, there's a lot of tools in our business that we've implemented since the start of the pandemic as well, just to assist us in working remotely. So as a business, like Martin said, we are an innovative business and we are pushing the digital envelope. And then AKULAR came on board as we were ramping up. So the appetite was there as a business, and even myself being a younger project manager, I do like technology, and I've got a passion for construction. So where AKULAR came in at the right time is we were able now to merge the digital realm with the physical realm, the construction. And what we're doing is we're merging or cross-pollinating technology to make and develop us useful tools that we can use in construction. Because as human beings, what we're good at is we generate a lot of things, and then we store it or we hoard it. And I see the same happening in the digital era or the digital realm. So when we start a project, we generate all these data and we build models up to a record model, and then it just goes to the bin. But what we're doing now with AKULAR is harnessing that data that's been created, the effort and the time has been spent, and then we're going to feed it with more technology and then increase the lifespan of that data up to our employers level as well.
I would think as well that this sort of transparency, I think if you take a step back, what it's so good at doing is creating trust between the different parties. I think often when I talk to investors and contractors, it's always a fight between, not a fight exactly, but there's a lot of risk in any construction project between the investor and the general contractor, and then all of the subcontractors. The more everybody knows, the more everybody has good information, the right type of information, and it's available. It just seems to be de-risking things on so many levels. So it's not advantageous just to one party, just to the other, but it seems like it should be able to make all of them work together in a project in a more constructive partnership type of way.
Yeah, that is correct. That's de-risking is and facilitating the collaboration and that's the key. But what is really interesting is that here we are kind of changing the paradigm on how people work with data. So what enables the collaboration is that you get the right data at the right time in the right space, right? So you are able to, in the context of the model, in the context of your construction, which is the subject of what you are doing, what thousands of people are doing, right? As Dewald said, you got thousands of documents. And now we're trying to basically funnel the relevant documents to the right people. So that they have only the information, they're not overloaded, but they get the right information that they actually need at that point in time, And then, of course, based on that, that approach, the data finds the person. You don't have to search for it. You basically go on site, and the data jumps at you, right? And then from there, obviously, we are unlocking a lot of innovation, because if you are able to do the data correlation with the part of the 3D model, then of course you can connect the processes to it. Once you're able to connect the processes, you are able to even connect payments, because that something has been handed over, that something has been properly done, it's been approved. So you can add things like smart contracts to that, for instance. So you can use digital currency, for instance, things like that. So looking into the future, there's a lot of innovation that can be built on this platform.
Dewald, how about that? We've been talking about how you are actually using these technologies right now, but if you look ahead, what do you see the potential for it? If everything is digitized, are there applications potentially for blockchain? What are the different sorts of applications that you can envision going forward? Because we only have a couple more minutes.
Okay, I'll try and make it quick. I would say up until now, we've only scratched the surface of digital construction. So the fundamentals now for us lie in creating a sustainable foundation with AKULAR in terms of setting up a single technology platform that we can use for further additions or future additions of software. So like Martin said, blockchain and smart contracts and payments is definitely what I see also as part of the future. Having weekly or daily funds transferred maybe to your supply chain will definitely improve their cash flow and ensure that projects moves faster and smoother, because currently what we're sitting on is a 30 or 60-day payment term where you fund the project, and then after a long process of manual submissions and payment certificates, you then see your money 30, 60 days after the job's been done. But if you start integrating blockchain payments and you can use scanning on site, which is vetted by your commercial teams, then you can see money funneling through to the supply chain maybe on a weekly basis or on a fortnightly basis. I also see in future the additions of robotic scanners embedded into the software. Also see the robotic drones sitting onto the software. So our ideas are far and we're shooting for the moon here, but we believe if you don't have big ambitions and big ideas, you're never going to move forward.
Well, equally, you can't get there if you don't have the infrastructure in place, and it sounds like that's what's being developed right now.
Yes.
Yeah, working on it hard.
Okay, we have gone a little bit over our allotted time. I don't know if there's any questions from the audience or any questions from people on Slido, but if that's not the case, then I'd like to thank everybody for watching, for people in the audience, for people online. Dewald, thanks very much. It's been great having you.
Thank you, Dewald.
So from Expo Dubai 2020, thank you very much, and hopefully we see you everyone in person in the near future.
Thank you.